This is Deb Helfrich, hashtag redheaded She-Hulk. This is about Synchronicity Live. I'm going to go through and make sure we get my 3 minutes and it doesn't freeze. And I'm going to invite somebody into the chat window. Oh, she is. She's really live on LinkedIn. I just got to wait for the 3 minutes. So this is about just understanding a little bit more about telepathy. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Telepathy is simply the capacity to sense the music of somebody else's brain. You know, the ears can have sound from a certain amount of range, but sound is an electromagnetic wave. And electromagnetic waves are essentially I'm sitting here going, well, I want to explain it to my friend. And then I'm going to be like, well, I just explained all this, but then she doesn't tune in. So, but no, it's a practice. It's a practice. And also, I guess while I'm here, I can get the link. Got the shareable link. Shareable link. Terrible towel. Let's see. So we're about just doing some facial tapping. It's really absurd that I have to do this like 3-minute thing to just make sure that the YouTube doesn't freeze, because I don't want to send her the link and then y'all freeze on me. The amount of overhead the tech is taking from human lives right now, because none of it is synthesized and integrated, and it's every company for their own bottom line. They went crazy. The amount of administrative work your social media is giving to you every day, and it's taken you away from absolutely every possible deep feeling moment of being human. So we're at 3:18. I don't know. I mean, once we near the 4-minute mark, YouTube Live won't freeze on me. And then maybe my friend won't have stepped away from her phone in the interim time. I'm just waiting for the tech to announce if it's all set up. We're definitely there. We're definitely at 3:45. We'll go round and around. All right, so I'm gonna be watching to see if I see a purposeful 2 show up, and then we'll do a little bit of real live. Truman showing on purpose, or just me blockchaining my intellectual property and showing that we can co-create, 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 co-create. I mean, we don't think it's funny or impossible. I mean, funny like crazy. That there's a clicky click. I should only have one. Sure. There I am. I'm typing. I'm just playing with blockchaining. Okay, so YouTube, I'll be right there with you. So what I'm just saying is I'm just playing with blockchaining my intellectual property. So there are breadcrumbs between here and YouTube and date time stamping, all kinds of major life occurrences and future predictions. There we go. All right. Okay, good. She didn't hop on. So what I want to just explain is just this sort of the sense of once you step beyond knowing that friends that you're supposed to be friends with, there's a lot of fun there. You're enjoying it. There's a rhythm and it's a dance and everything. It's hard. So this one's particularly hard because I'm trying to go, well, maybe my friend will pop on and I'll see her and I can just start having a conversation versus trying to fill the time with a dry run of the conversation. I don't know. To pull focus for a second, I'm in a stream of consciousness, artistic flow state. And what I'm doing is co-creating my own life with somebody I met on LinkedIn 3 hours ago. And we just both have went through major health situations. And there's a clickety click. I should only have one window open. Good. And I just said, enjoy family time. Because that's what it's all about. Okay. Now I can stop trying to constantly multitask and is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? That's so in the complexity of our modern world, and one of the things understanding the theory of everything. It's in and of itself to know how life clicks together, to have a cosmology. And everything that pops up, you go, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. Oh, I can say it in this way and that way. It just is what I was born to do. It is so pleasurable to me to be able to just go, now I'm going to have to talk about things, and I have to do it in this methodology. And, I'll get better and better at it. But even my worst attempt it's priceless. Here's the deal. I'm a little redheaded girl who's grown up to be able to give Sigmund Freud vagina envy. I just have a better definition of how the human subconscious operates. So not just to define the term better, but in doing so, I'm literally demonstrating. You're literally getting the meta that working on the words, because there's all of these paradigms about humans that we don't see. We're in our own blind spots, and we think so poorly of ourselves, while also thinking we're just aliens from a different planet. Well, I mean, quantum physics. We all sort of think, okay, well, this is the smartest, forward-looking, future, most hearts. This is science is science. Philosopher's philosopher, Deb Halfrich, she Socrates, this generation, goes, the observer effect is not spooky action at a distance or anything. It's that y'all Western measurement medicine men of white mediocrity keep mistaking the tools for the outcome. You keep mistaking what you see as disproving what you feel. It's invisible. But yet, the internet's obsessed with visual illusions and metaphorical illusions. Our bodies are instruments of consciousness. And in this tuning that we do, of both broadcasting and receiving, we have organs of perception. And these organs of perception are the pinnacle of evolution. But there have been trade-offs in how the evolution of human civilization has progressed, that so much of our evolution-derived magnificence has been dulled and deadened, penned into cubicle captivity. No more. I am the red-headed She-Hulk who's going to stand up time and time again, do a number of these performances from this way and that way. You see, in the past, what you'd be doing is creating an act and then having the performer memorize the act and always do the same act. And there's skill in that, and there's use in that. And the nuance that will come in the repetition, that teaches us something. But there's also something in the extreme challenge of performing a new set every single night. That's what the incredible redheaded She-Hulk is all about. Loving the flubs. Big thing here for all humans is because I'm feeling the like crap. I just coughed on my own hashtag. Should be, in my case, a phrase that I've said so many times, it's just flawless. You see this flawlessness that permeates every aspect of our culture right now. It's paralyzing. It's ingenuity, inventiveness, innovation, and just the flow of being human. We've all become plastic. To get on broadcast media requires a real sort of cookie cutter approach. And now we've taken that same framework and made the internet and social media about the popularity of this same sort of polished away, not dynamically alive version of reality. For better or worse, every sentence I have said since I've shown up, even some of the awkward pauses where I can't multitask and type yet in my mold healing journey, well, I should be able to get there. What's stopping me at every case, actually, when I don't say, oh, here's something I'll learn, because my brain, I did neuroplasticity is, again, first plastic is bad and plastic is good, and plastic, the stuff, needs to stop. We don't need any more plastic goods. We need to stop all that plastic shit right now. Just because that's actually impossible. I'm with you on that. It's actually impossible for me to just demand that we stop every single plastic thing and then. But you're missing the point. The point is not this one-to-one cause and effect. There's nothing and then there's nothing. There is an implementation plan there. So now I'm so cognitively aware that I worry that you don't get the nothing and the nothingness. So I'm shifting out of the gear of being quite so meta. Because I thought this was going really great. It was. But as with all humans, there's an element of fear in my life that I've had to keep to myself for some time. Of really being alone. In having the primary cause of my death be nobody would listen to her when she asked for help, demanded help, suggested help, created all hundreds of ways for people to help her. being neglected for 52 years. It's been a lot to take on by myself. And it is because I never pruned the neurons to shift up into gamma brainwaves. In my life, the overeating and the hibernating was about basically not being able to vibrate with the way humans thought and talked about how they thought. It just literally, modern society is so bizarre to me. What people say, I mean, one inconsistency to another inconsistency, every sentence, things. It's the cognitive dissonance of having to learn to distrust the truth of our body. Human civilization is inhumane to human bodies. The pollution, the noise, the rigged economic systems. You see, profundity comes out of me. In talking to myself as I have done in these performances, hundreds of them since October, and prior to that on Zoom, so some are uploaded, others just on my likely to be trashed computer equipment, verifying this evolution that's been televised. So I am blockchaining myself and making reference to things happening in the real world. Because otherwise you might think I'm cray-cray. I'm not. But I want to be okay with that perception. I lean into this a little bit more than I necessarily have to. I know how to have the mannerisms and talk in the way that would make you feel differently about me. Make you feel like, oh yes, she's a regular old person in corporate America. Yes, I can change all of that. But what I'm not going to do is continue playing myths like that. You have been made a mental zombie. It's a 3-second attention span in a pandemic altered world. People are just and I need help. I need help getting a little bit of a family situation so I can learn how to be less obscure. It's all valid philosophical stuff, and you come back and say, well, Deb, how did you jump from here to here? And go, oh, well, here was the 5 steps between this piece of logic and this piece of logic. And this is where I'm mixing. I'm using this word as a triple entendre. Boom, boom, boom. That's why I get so happy, and that's why you don't really see the invisible layers. If I took a word that has 3 meanings and I jump to using it in the 3rd meaning. We're all doing this complexity. We just don't have the energetic capacity as players, adult Americans in the, elitist capitalism, privileged democracy hegemony. It's this We've been altered from human beings into human doings, but then really extremely quickly into human consumings. What has happened on the internet in the last 23 years? You're not even going to see it. If you've participated in society, even just one more movie more than me, I was just right there on the edge of not being part of society, but being part of all of it. And transducing it through my body mind with a lot of sleep, a lot of rest, and just observing, right? Never really getting to participate in life. As outlier as my experience of being a human has been, and it's pretty much, I'm just like, in my own mind, there's a little axis of all humanity. And what I mean by that is, I always feel like I've got something in common with everyone, everything, in a way that I can go, it's all interrelated and connected. There is a coherence to my memory storage and what I've seeked out in my life, the stimulus and the people and the lack thereof, and the failures of any kind of interdependent relationship. You know, not being in the fabric of any dynamic of humans. So a lot went on in there. How do I say what I want to say? And the thing was, it's not that I knew what I wanted to say. I had to literally go, I don't know what I want to say here. Because it's my perception this, but we can't keep holding individuals accountable for things that are about the environment. So we have to understand, so nobody's ever again, what do I say here? I don't want any blame on other people. But the complete lack of me going, I don't have to operate at 100%. I can rely on this person for that. No experience of this. Makes me need to swallow. Makes me need to there were periods of lovely friendships, of quite often very, very supportive. But it was as if, and this is how it turned out, the very slightest off moment I would have, people would disappear out of my life. And not in necessarily, never, rarely, in any kind of this went wrong shouting match. Like they'd just be there and then they wouldn't. And every occurrence of this, it made me ghost my own self more. And this is what our society is teaching us all. Because the game of capitalism is rigged. You didn't see me going there, but I'm coming right back to the foundation of all this. We are all so scared and traumatized. And all of this evil is happening to our children because previous versions of children are being exploited by their work. It's all about the grind of capitalism, the inequities of capitalism. It's all about the way you have to participate in an economic system that's completely inhumane. And sometimes humans are ill. And so you take the combination of having my toxic mold exposure, having this lifelong morbid obesity, chronic diseases all intertwined in there that I knew nothing about. Fibromyalgia to some extent, and chronic fatigues, and these. And there was just never, nothing's ever wrong, she's just fat. Great thing. Avoiding Western medicine is a superpower of mine. And I just want to debunk the myth that we just got to go to the doctors. That there's this broad acreage of do-it-yourself health responsibility that we're not accurately seeing in our culture that's very focused on biochemistry. And this is both biomechanics, posture. Posture is queen. And I would suggest you check out Esther Gokhale, Gokhale, Gokhale method. Ancestral posture. Important. Comes down to this. If your spine is not optimally aligned, you are altering the bandwidth of your afferent body communications. Every micron, physically. And this offloads into all the way, the whole communications network of the body. You crimp, and you just don't have things in optimal posture, right? It's really not okay. And our body's got some flexibility there, but it's still, even if you've got good muscle tone and you're just sort of, leaning this way just because you're trying to type on something and you haven't got your ergonomics straight. Well, even if you're well enough for that to happen, you do that for just too long of a period and make it a habit. The bioelectricity of that area dims and decreases. Some of the major things, it's like in a pandemic, right? It needs to go. I don't want to pick on industries and make it, but I mean, who needs, fancy clothes? live in your house. I mean, a few people will, but do we need all of that many fancy clothes that we had? Do we need clothes that weren't made out of toxic petrochemical fibers, but were actually need fewer garments of much higher quality of more natural fibers? These kinds of improv performances, pulling the focus back again to this is a one-woman improv. It's a definitely sort of stand-up comedy, stand-up philosophy style. Also, there's a lot of embodiment, and whether that's just intonation and this or that, the other thing, pauses. But I'm communicating subconsciously at a very high level. What that takes, though, and this is the sort of Grand Canyon, and I think you're sort of there in a similar situation, is we're not in the linear mode of communication. What's happened in some respect, either the seizure, the mold, these things that create some something, and it can be both a surge and a deadening and a this and a that, but it creates a different wiring. And what happens is we come out and we use more of the biofield. So we have a little something, something, once again, whether it's like a knock on the head and just this is, I'm touching, there's this thing. I had a skin tag right here. And now that I've been doing a lot of massage, really trying to ensure my physiological plasticity and not just worrying about left and right hemispheres of the brain, but there are left and right hemispheres of the human body as well. And there really needs to be a lot of communications. And doing things like this, these kinds of movements, bring back a sort of full body, like, can everything go? And when we used to live more dynamic lives, with substantial amounts of rest. I mean, back in the hunter-gatherer days, which is what I think it would be optimal, free-range humans again. And we can throw some layers of civilization on that. There should be a lot more wild, a lot more nature. But, concrete can be sustainable. There's some real ways that we can have a civilization. We just have to not be so freaking barbaric about the situation. Lost my train of thought there. Bring up barbarism. No, that really was a skip. So, in a nutshell, what happened there was there was so much going on in my brain that I couldn't pick a channel to broadcast out of my mouth. And that is probably to some extent, another way to describe neurodiversity. All of these syndromes and sort ADHD and dyslexia, all these autism, Asperger's. I got them all after 50. But also, the state of the world one lives in, somebody should have probably noticed my specialness. Somebody should have noticed my specialness. Yeah, I mean, just. But it's so interesting because, again, as a 0 point human, a 0 point field, and nothing bad ever happened to me, really. But since nothing good ever really did either, and I'm talking developmentally, I'm talking about so there again, what do I want to tell you about that? Because there's a few levels of depth that when you let go of all of the societal needs to communicate in a certain way, you let it rip. Especially if you've been fasting for 2 days and you feel you've gotten really so there's a trigger. And that trigger was, I feel like just finally somebody who can hear what I'm saying and is reflected back a little bit of cherishing and a little bit of, I want to play more with you. Just asked for so very little and got none. So, because in conventional ways, you would say, well, I got my practice in, and I'm down with some of the practicing. Because it's just been me, myself, and I practicing. The notes become ever more just Deb. Well, okay, that didn't work. How do we get better? Well, become more just Deb. Both intentionally and again, just subconsciously, just like when you're asking for input and feedback and to entrain the other instruments of consciousness. And people like, well, not right now, Deb, but why don't you talk to other people about this? Everyone I'm going, I need help. I really need help. Well, my advice is, advice is not help. And again, in having a friend who I feel like I could be so truthful with and say, so here's the thing, right? We meet, then it's like, oh, and you should know this person and this person and this person and all. like this is all we do now. We don't go, it's all these other experts. It's like the currency now of social, popularity is like, how many people can I force you to go consume their social media whatnots? All of which are to lock money up into all these sort of separate little buckets in one sense. But in another sense, everything that's happening right now happens if you pay FB or Google for ads. You can be a real person like me and you sit here talking to yourself and going a little bit complexity plex. That's all I'm guilty of over here. But I can identify with why it's challenging to process. The elder savanting, this is when I put this hashtag up. This is me going full out. This is me pushing my own. It's like, not gonna happen very often, but it's like when Jordan and Pippen had to face off. Now, mostly like it's just like that point where like the game had gotten so, and I'll say boring. Let's not. I don't mean that in a judgy way, but just everything was very routine. That who was going to give each other the best game possible to sort of like bust through that, so nobody really said about that part, and it probably might have been maybe it didn't really need teams around, or maybe it was more subtle. They did it, maybe watching film and having some sort of who observes what kind of. It's just all of this. Everyone on The Last Dance. I mean, I learned all that much new. I'm glad Scotty. I like the part where Scotty like, well, I'll probably do that again. Probably throw the chair again because Phil took me out the game. It's like racism, because it's like most of the time what people are saying is you gotta always be willing to do what's necessary for the team. And when you are the best player on the team, by everybody's collective assessment, you don't get pulled out the game. The strategy of living in the society of 2021. Who was right, coach or player? But what are your perspectives? Fans, the other team's fans, the other side's players, the other side's coaches. Because the thing is, it's so much pressure. that this thing that nobody expects to happen is that you pull a star player out. It just destabilizes everything. You just go, and you and your team have, well, your backup to backup plan if the star player, actually got injured. The other team is just like, you would not take your star player out. So there's some real skill there, because I'm as zen as Phil Jackson. But when you're just in the plain old Machiavellian male situation, there's always that out for the coach. That is just the slyest, most astute move possible. It's the way to create the most chaos. But from the player's side, and from the fans' side, you broke the trust of family. Human dynamics are always going back and forth like this. And they always will to some extent. But we can dial down the fear that's ramping up the hate and the tension and the diseases and based on stress and the choppiness, like the choppiness. All of us are sometimes having thoughts or encountering situations in the environment that bring us to a point of needing to do that whole release the horror dance. That's what I just did. So not on my yoga ball, balanced on my yoga ball and everything, but doing real jerky, choppy, just letting go of stored vibrations around the level of vulnerability on this broadcast, and seeing that there's two, and going, well, do I have to remember and look at the chat there, and you're on the chat, and get back to one. The playfulness of it all, right? Really kind of cool. And scene. All in all, that was an interesting one. Coming back in and forth between playing one set of questions on the opposite end of the screen, while mostly just talking through my own internal process. The complexity of how human beings can think is something that really astounds me. And I know it is sort of hard to follow when somebody's just like, I'm just going to be myself out loud. Our society is one that just goes, that's crazy. Well, most of the time, people are just being themselves. What we conceive of as crazy is just somebody being themselves out loud. And there's a shorthand and a lot of shortcuts in the way of experience the world. I mean, in my own case, I live in a green world. I do not live in a red world. The vibration of red I am the hashtag redheaded She-Hulk, and there shall be no other red anywhere in my environment. That's because I have a root chakra imbalance, because I've never had a family situation in which this spark of me would be free enough to get out to practice, to sort of see, do all the scales of this instrument of my mind so that I can really create music from being a philosopher and having a creative way of language with a lot of embodiment coming along too. Again, if I didn't have to be just in this corner, the microphone didn't have the challenges picking up from a laptop if I do movie moves. But at the same time, talking to yourself, this is pure medicine. This is mental alchemy. Because when you get fearless enough to watch your own film, talking to yourself in public on the internet, so maybe there's people around, but in the case of somebody like me, can't get anybody to notice her. I'm feeling that wanting to shift. It has been the case. That is a statement of outcome, not a statement of prediction. But it is, again, finding the person who also has the capacity to receive the gamma brainwaves. The gammas are fierce, and it takes a certain kind of fitness. It's not what we think about, like, good oxygen-carbon exchange when running or muscled bodies or anything. Mental fitness is about optimized conductivity of bioelectricity. So it's just the matrix, and the matrix is also the conductivity matters. I think gamma brainwaves, it's just having the capacity. It's much more energy, and you can have all kinds of feedback with yourself. The pleasure loops, of circuitry of like, because what just happened there is I just looked down at my leg and it's all thin looking, and I'm both like. What about the other one? Well, no, the angle of the other one. No, the angle of the other one's pretty great. No, but this something, around the way it's just. I got my feet propped up and my this and my that. Wow. To not know what your body feels like until you're nearly 52, when your body starts to hit the range, upper range, when I'm in the range of my natural weight. This is where the energy to do the performances at the top capacity of my own brain and speaking equipment, and recording them and having them for a documentary in the future. I don't see the ones again that I hashtag Elder Savanting. Complete and utter innovating new material. So not putting any filter on I got to be explainable to somebody on the internet. This is all only explainable to Deb. And Deb might lose the reference key sometimes. It's like you set up a folder, and then like 9 months later you're like, what's this folder all about? There's like 4 documents in it. I don't know. Why do I need that? I have no idea what any of this means. Just some things that come at us, we're in our normal habitual processes of trying to store data. We don't really know if it's going to be meaningful or not. Other things that happen are so salient, it's as if they had to happen. And that is a fully embodied feeling. It's the fountain of youth. I'm sure if I had I don't even want to bring it up, but if I was one of the Western measurement medicine men, they're all fitting themselves and wearing all kinds of apparatus eyes and in their blood tested. I'm certain. Take my word for it, because you don't go around asserting this unless something in your body goes, this also happening. But the HGH circulating in my brain is what's causing. I'm getting fit now. Fit now. And might be able to out Joseph Campbell over here. Because it's kind of like, I'm going through my Shiro's journey over here of trying to heal from the mold, which at a fundamental level feels like was also part of my infancy problems. That during some very early stage of my development, associated with the, formula and the lack of touch, there was some sort of exposure to mold. And that explains a lot of the real outlier non-feelingness. There was childhood emotional neglect, there was the whole community of origin, no touching and all these. But then that would explain, again, an environmental situation. A mold in the environment, in the building stock, in the interplay between this, that, and the other thing, the density of the soil and the microorganisms that flourish and the mildew that float around and carry the mold. So like, again, I'm just the redhead in the coal mine. I'm just extraordinarily sensitive in an embodied way. And then my body's like going out, but just like data. My body's just like a supercomputer, right? Data. My body's processing all these sensory inputs. And the drone of it all becomes quite painful. Because you're not trusting the truth of your body. And in my case, if I had that sort of life partner that person who saw my work in the world as a philosopher, as somebody who was just thinking at. If I could, I think Troy gets the complexity, but I don't really know that anybody else. I mean, well, everyone thought I was smart, I'm sure, but they didn't know like how smart I was. Like how, like in what category of smartness was I smart? And it's homeodynamic balance. It's like operating a really non-standard human body exquisitely well. And in all of that, having just this really fit mind, and the fit mind that I can also say is like the way musicians' minds are fit, and in the way that people who speak 3 or more languages minds are fit. But in my case, it's how do I operate this body to stop the pain of not being able to speak my truth? So there's a lot of energy here. This is the right side of my throat chakra. This is really close in. This is, again, sort of big bump here that ultimately created a skin tag. So there's like deadening to this place, which is probably the last bit of my non-singing capacity. So I watched that mind wander. I was in actual meditation state right there. Wondering if it makes you uncomfortable. Okay, took you through that little exercise, which was checking in with your face. Like actually putting on a Zoom or live and checking in on your face. Like, does it work well? Valuable information. We should all be spending time in a mirror dance studio. Okay. Deb, we're not taking any more of complexity. We'll give you $1 million if you can say one thing. Give me my 100 million carbon capture of human life force. Let's give everyone ecstatic trance dance opportunities, both in community, live music, but also in this exploratory way of being able to just play with your own full embodiment. This is key. This is key. This is very key. You know, when we want something, we want a six pack. Maybe see what's going to happen to my body. We want to keep our posture, do this, do that, the other thing. We've listened to a society that says that what's going on in our head is not fit for consumption. And it's like that suggestion poisons it. Because as I'm here by myself, scared to death, really could be quite mad at the human race for abandoning me. Just like it just takes one act of family. Can we be doing radical acts of family? Can we start bringing in people who complement the existing dynamics? More aunties, uncles, with strictly open boundaries in relationships. You know what I'm saying? But like we normalize out in concentric circles from a nuclear family, because the nuclear family is, again, there's all of this need to protect, and that's a very, very, very challenging thing. Let me just go see over here. No, I turned it off. But that's okay. Now there is a 2. Okay. All right, let me see. Did I just heard the LinkedIn message and I didn't have the application open. Serious, y'all. Look how long it takes LinkedIn to load. Yep, I'm about to head out. Got way distracted there. Harmony, y'all. Harmony, y'all.